Hi guys, this is part two on removing the wheel from a Cat 627 scraper and replacing the wheel seals. So uh, to remove the wheel then, we use the Cat 252B skid steer with pallet forks, and we wrapped a big 4-inch ratchet strap around the middle of the tire on top of the scraper axle, and then each end of the ratchet strap we hooked into the backboard on the pallet fork assembly. Then we pried the wheel seal off of the spindle with a crow's foot and then a wrecking bar. The crow's foot, they're only a little over a foot long. The wrecking bar is probably like 3 feet. Crow's foot, I was able to pry it part way off, but after that, I didn't have enough leverage. There was too big of a gap, so then we went to a wrecking bar. And then to remove the two bearing races on each side of the wheel, we heated them up in 4 places, almost like we were going to torch it off. And then we let them cool, and that let us pry them out of there with a little crow's bar. And then the mechanic, he was actually hitting on it with his palm to kind of get them knocked out of there, hitting on that crow's bar. And then we got, let's see, okay, so one of those bearing races on the wheel we got out with the crow's foot, and then the other side we used a lawn chisel and a hammer. And then we just pounded the two new races in with a hammer in only 2 spots, one side of the race, the other side of the race. And then we used the 1 foot long crow's foot um, pry bar for a lot of the work on this job here. And at Snap-on or Blue Point usually sells those. And then we tapped the big cone bearing onto the spindle with a punch and a chisel. And I believe we tapped the wheel seal on the spindle with a rubber mallet. And that's got a big O-ring on it to help get it on there. And then we installed the wheel back on with the skid steer and the ratchet strap. And one thing I wasn't aware of, there's actually antifreeze inside of the rim because there is an air pocket, and there is no way to check the level. There's just a fill plug. You can just add so many gallons of antifreeze. And it's probably something that we'll never have to do, but the mechanic told me about that. He's only actually had to mess with it one time. He said the way Caterpillar felt with it, anytime they have an air pocket in anything, um, I guess air creates cold or whatever, so they decided to put antifreeze in there. But he had one time where the actual antifreeze was leaking into the final drive, and that's the only time he's ever actually dealt with um, the antifreeze on there from the factory. And then it says you apply a thin bead of gear oil on the new wheel seals, and you are not supposed to use your finger because of the acids in your skin. That's what the mechanic told us. So that's what he was taught. And then uh, we ins- then we installed the planetary housing just with the hook on the chain. We didn't use lifting on it, just a really deep throat hook. And then we installed the 3 planetary sun gear assembly with the lifting eye with the boom truck. So that in there. Then we removed the gear and snap ring from the axle shaft and just installed the axle shaft. Um, but we left it out a little ways. Then we installed the sun gear back on the axle shaft while keeping the axle shaft far enough out so we could get our C-clip back on the axle shaft. Then we installed the small cover back on to the wheel. Then we rotated the tire so the drain plug was horizontal and installed a new O-ring in the drain plug hole and pumped almost 10 gallons of 80-90 weight gear oil into the planetary with a hand pump mounted on a 5-gallon bucket. And for raising the scraper off the ground to do this work to get the wheel off, we used a 32-ton red hydraulic bottle jack and a bunch of blocks under the left side of the transmission. And then also for all of your bolts on the very outside of your rim for mounting it, I remember the mechanic had us actually rotating the wheel to seat everything on there. And he did have to actually seat the big cone bearing too. Um, and it had a whole bunch of shims in it. That was just that smaller one in the video that I showed you guys, probably only about that big, and it was black and had 6 black bolts in it. That um, for some reason we actually had to remove a few of the shims. Somebody just added too many into there. So um, what else? That's about all I can think of on there because I spent a couple days since we did this job there, and this is only my first time working on a cat scraper, pulling off a wheel and stuff like that. So all right, hope this helps you guys. If you guys like this content, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll just keep out more repair videos for you guys and money saving tips. All right, bye.